So yeah, North London derby, post North London derby. You said to me earlier that it was the first one in a long time you've been to at the Emirates. So what was the old atmosphere like?
Yeah, the atmosphere was great, especially in the first half and before the game and stuff. It was really everyone was really up for it. It was really rocking. Um, yeah, first one I've been to at the Emirates for a long time, so it felt sort of quite special to be there. I guess having sort of um, watched all the games last year at home on the TV, where the atmosphere was great for a large part of last season. So yeah, it was really good. Kind of, I think the game almost petered out a bit in the second half, and I think the atmosphere did as well. Especially the nature, I guess, of when sort of Spurs scored their second goal immediately after we made it 2-1. So that was a real kind of dagger in the hearts, I guess. And I think that kind of that was sort of felt in the stadium. I think people in the stadium, it felt like the crowd didn't really get over that, if that makes sense. So yeah, first half and before the game, amazing atmosphere, but in the second half it was a bit flat, I think, because of how the game went.
Yeah, but I'll play devil's advocate. Is you saying the game petered out just the Arsenal version of events, or did Tottenham just play really well?
Um, I think Tottenham played well. Tottenham played better probably than I expected. I thought they played well. They really kind of came and they didn't sit back. They sort of kind of they played their own game. Like we spoke about, like you said they would. Um, so Spurs played well, but I still do think Spurs took off. They took off Son and Madison with about 80 something minutes. So they were kind of settling as well for a point, I think. So I don't. Yeah, I think Spurs played well, but I don't think. I think a draw was. I would say a draw was a fair result. Yeah.
Yeah. So in general, because I watched about 70% of the match, like it was on the TV, but I was sort of doing other things. So who took the sway in the match? If you were to analyse the full 90 minutes, would you
Yeah.
say Arsenal edged it? Because you sort of the first half, it looked like you were largely on top, and then
Yeah.
from
I
what
think
I saw, it looked like they had the second half.
maybe. Yeah. I think I messaged you, didn't I? I think I said, look, we've
Yeah.
been on top. It's just we've had a sloppy 5 minutes in the first half, and I do think that having listened back to a couple of podcasts and that, I think um yeah, most people are kind of in agreement that in the first 30, 35 minutes, Arsenal played well, not incredible, but well, in terms of we were sort of pressing Tottenham and nicking the ball off them and sort of creating chances from that. And Spurs weren't really kind of getting out of their. They were having quite a bit of possession, but they weren't really getting out of their half. Um, so yeah, I do think we were kind of well on top, and then Jesus missed an incredible chance to make it 2-0, which was made by him. He obviously won the ball back, really good pressing, but then sort of actually just blazed it over. That was kind of quite a big turning point, I think. And then after that, we became a bit sloppy. Raya made made an amazing save. Um, and you kind of almost, as an Arsenal fan, hope that okay, hopefully that's a bit of a wake up call. And we kind of wake up now, but we didn't really reassert ourselves at all in that first half. And Spurs finished the first half on top for sure. Um, yeah, and then of course Declan Rice went off, and I think that, to be honest, I think that was a huge blow. We lost Trossard just before the game, and then we lost Rice at half time. And if you say that we're going to play a North London derby and we're not going to have Rice or Partey, that's huge. Jorginho's barely played, so that was a crucial point, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was about to suggest that you guys, I don't know. I was about to pose the question that, are you guys title material this year, given
Mm.
what I saw? But I do, yeah, you bring up the point about not having Rice and Partey in a North London derby. I think that's relevant. It's relevant to drawing 2-2 with Tottenham. But I still sort of feel, I don't know what it is. I still don't feel like you're firing on all cylinders. I know
Mm.
that you haven't dropped many points, but something's not clicking. there's not as much. It doesn't feel like there's as much electricity coming out from the team as there was for large parts of last season.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know. I might be misguided in that.
No, no, Pete. I think this. I think it's true. I think it's definitely true. Yeah, there's been sort of something lacking a bit in terms of our like um, yeah, sort of like potency, I guess, going for in the final third and like going forward. There was I don't know if you saw Match of the Day too, but there was like quite an interesting stat about like how many chances we're creating and stuff. I think we were about 12th in terms of like big chances created. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so I guess what like we're seeing in terms of like with our eyes, I guess, is like borne out of those stats. We are sort of like we haven't. The only time we've really clicked going forward was in the Champions League, to be honest. Um, and so yeah, it's a little bit concerning, I guess. I think the most concerning thing is the fact that like those injuries really seem to be like starting to pile up. We've got it's one thing to have Martinelli out, then it's another thing altogether is to have Martinelli and Trossard both out. To have
Yeah.
Rice and Partey both out. Saka kind of picked up an injury as well, and I think Saka's out potentially this weekend coming as well. So yeah, it's that's concerning.
Injuries aside,
Yeah,
like what really has changed from last season? Like the obvious big
yeah,
difference is Granit Xhaka. That's
yeah,
in my mind. That's the obvious difference
mm,
in terms of your personnel and who you've got at your disposal.
yeah.
Because yeah, and Rice has come in to try and replace him. And Rice has done well in his own way, but maybe is it exposing how much Xhaka offered to your team last season?
Yeah, Xhaka was amazing last season, wasn't he? And
He
we've
was
said that a lot.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We've said that a lot. And also, he brought a lot to the team in terms of like, I was listening to an Arsenal podcast today, and every time we kind of used to score last season, he used to get the team in like a big like huddle. And there's like none of that happening this season, I don't think.
yeah.
So he's definitely missed in terms of his like presence as well, off the pitch. And he was a really big character. Um, Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know, but again, listening to a podcast earlier, they kind of we were really sort of like one thing that cost us maybe the title last season was we kind of were really sloppy defensively when Saliba got injured, and even before that, I think we were quite sort of sloppy and conceding too many goals, and I think Arteta, you've seen it in a few of the early games, like we're kind of it feels like we spoke last week about Arsenal becoming boring. Like it seems like we're kind of maybe wanting to like I don't know, like control games more in like more of a controlled way, but like sort of and we're almost playing less more conservative, I guess, in the way that we're going forward, if that makes sense. So there's less chance of us losing the ball in like dangerous positions for the opposition, maybe. And yeah, I guess we definitely don't look as good on the eye, and we're not clicking going forward. But maybe he's just kind of trying to find that balance between being really good going forward and also being yeah more safe at the back as well. We haven't found the balance for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue actually though that though you haven't looked as electric, you've won most of your games, albeit mostly by one goal.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
haven't thrashed anyone, but actually that might be a good sign. If that's what Arteta is trying to achieve, then you are looking more rigid defensively, and you're still nicking a win. That's kind of mission accomplished, isn't it?
I guess
So
so. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. And we're looking better at the back. It's literally kind of just like individual mistakes. Against Fulham when we drew, it was kind of individual mistakes. Jorginho made that mistake. So you kind of take them out. We could potentially, even though we've not played great, we could potentially have 6 wins out of 6, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, over the next few weeks. We have also played 4 games at home out of 6 as well. So we're going to have a few away ones to come. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. Um,
at this early stage in the season, Like
Yeah.
it's far too early to call. But what would you where do you see yourself finishing? What would you take as an Arsenal fan? Is it still minimum top four, or are you aiming higher than that?
I think before the start of the season, I would have said after last season that we should be aiming to finish in the top two, right? That we should be aiming for that.
But does that mean aiming to win it? It must do.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah, that's got to be the aim. Look, we were only 5 points behind City last season, so that's
Yeah.
got to be the aim. But if you really had to ask me even before the season who's going to win the title, I'm I can't not say City, and obviously that hasn't changed because they look pretty flawless. Um, if we the thing is we lost twice to Man City last year. If we just win one of those games, we win the league because they're 6 pointers. So we've got to beat Man City. If we beat them in a couple of weeks' time, we're only 1 point behind them. So we have to, we've lost about 12 games in a row against them or something crazy in the league. Obviously, that goes back to when we were kind of a lot worse than we are now. But we've got to at least avoid defeat. But really, we've got to beat them in one of those games, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to analyse your season so far because
Yeah, agree.
your point tally is not bad. You're doing okay. Something hasn't clicked, but it's not a bad start to the season. It's not bad at all. It's just something's not quite right. Yeah,
And it's just not beating Spurs as well, right? We've had a tendency to beat them really convincingly at the Emirates in the last few years. So I
yeah,
think a lot of Arsenal fans, maybe including myself, it was hard not to feel very confident, going into the game. Which also leaves you feeling a bit uneasy as well because you're like, I shouldn't really feel like this, but yeah.
you've got to give credit to Spurs as well. They didn't sit back. They tried to play. They tried to play for 90 minutes, and at times they edged the game. And quite impressively, I think was it their second goal? They answered your goal straight away. Was it they equalised pretty quickly after?
Yeah, it's a pretty poor, pretty bad mistake there, wasn't it, from Jorginho? But to be fair, they had a 2-on-1 and they did take the goal well.
It was clinical,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
thought
and and they're above you in the table.
on goal difference.
It's worth mentioning.
Is it goal on goal difference, right? Yeah,
It's on goal difference. It doesn't matter. They're still above you in the table. But
yeah, yeah. Early
but
days.
yeah, it is early days, and you would say betting favourite is Arsenal to finish above them. But yeah, you got to give Spurs a little bit of credit. I will anyway. I know you won't. But,
Look, I'm not overly worried about Spurs in terms of like I would be quite confident that we would finish above them. It's Liverpool who I guess I'm quite concerned about. Liverpool looking good.
they are, they are. But I think Liverpool and Spurs are in a similar boat to you in that a couple of injuries would really really hurt them. I think if like Maddison gets injured or Son gets injured, then Spurs are hugely exposed. And I think with Liverpool as well, if Salah got injured or if they lost two or three of their players, they would be really exposed as well.
True.
You're going through that spell at the moment. Let's see how you deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, City have had De Bruyne out, right, and they've still won every game.
Yeah, but their depth they out depth anyone in terms of quality. Who have you got to bring in? So players like Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe, not bad, but you could argue still not at City's level. If the January transfer window was to arrive tomorrow and we lived in utopia, what would your ideal signings be just to really sort of shift your season into another gear?
There's a lot of good question. There's a lot of narrative about Arsenal needing another striker now, isn't there?
Yeah, I've heard Ivan Toney mentioned.
Yeah. But he wouldn't have played for 6 months, right?
No.
I mean, yeah, Nketiah was poor the other day. I know you're not his biggest fan, Peter, but he had a poor game the other day. He didn't have much service, but he didn't contribute anything really. Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit of like Tammy Abraham, that kind of quality. So flashes of he'll do something occasionally that makes you think he's got the assets. He's got everything you need to be a decent striker. just without that cutting edge. I don't even know what that is. It's just one level up. That
Yeah.
means you get a chance, you take it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I think he's fine as like a second striker, like an impact striker. But he didn't. I think Arteta got it wrong. I don't think Nketiah should have played, to be honest, because we could have played Reece Nelson, we could have played Smith Rowe, and we could have played Jesus up front still. I think that's what he should have done.
yeah,
But yeah, but yeah. Sorry to go back to that. I think um, maybe a striker, maybe a striker. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one. What do you think Arsenal need more people?
yeah. You could argue, they're lacking the equivalent of a Haaland, although Haaland's kind of in his own league.
Yeah.
They're lacking like a ruthless striker. Jesus has so many qualities, but the one thing he lacks is like 20 plus goals.
Mm, mm.
He's good for maybe 10 to 15. But if you're looking to win the Premier League, then it's kind of like looking for a striker that's going to deliver a little bit more than that world
Yeah,
class level.
maybe. Yeah.
Um, and that, I guess maybe you need to look at the fact that Timber's out for so long. Do you need more reinforcements at the back just in case you get injuries at the back? Because last season, as soon as Saliba got injured, you kind of fell apart.
We had Holdinho to come in, which we haven't got
Yeah.
effectively this season.
Who have you got? Who have you got now? Have you brought in any other defenders?
Well, we've got. Well, if Saliba got injured, we probably would have to sort of shift. Ben White can play centre back. Tommy Asu can
Yeah,
play
but
centre back.
that's what I mean. As soon as one of your centre backs gets injured, you're shifting around. That's what happened
Yeah,
last
yeah,
season. I remember when we played you at the end of last season. You had Kirior playing
yeah,
left back. I think you had Ben White. I can't even remember what you did.
yeah.
So it looks like you're lacking another centre back.
We could do another body. We've only got six with Tim Morale. We've only got six defenders basically. So
Yeah,
yeah, we do need someone else there.
but I don't know. I think by and large, Edu and Arteta have done really well with recruitment. It's just trying to learn from last season, I guess. Timber's just an absolute nightmare of a situation.
It really is, mate. Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
was going to be. I think he was going to be great this season.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's just difficult, right? Competing with City because, like you said, it's not a bad start. 4 wins out of 6, but you're 4 points behind Man City, and if they weren't there, it really just puts the pressure on every game now. Just like because last season we didn't have that expectation, right? It was such a surprise. Whereas this season there's that expectation there, and you can almost feel a bit more like nervousness and pressure, maybe, and maybe that's contributing to the some flat performances, maybe as well.
Yeah. I think maybe to wrap it up, it's kind of like if you can maintain that extra solidity you've got at the back, and then just slowly incorporate a little bit more electricity going forward, then you might have a winning combination.
Mm,
The other possibility is that you keep winning 1-0 all season.
mm. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and Arsenal fans continue to say, "Oh, we're boring," and something's not quite right, but you just keep winning.
Well,
I think Man United did that for the entirety of the 1990s. So yeah,
yeah. Well, what were people saying about City last year in the first half of the season as well, right?
I know that it was like they were just winding up, weren't they? And then
Yeah,
winding up, winding up. So we'll
yeah.
see, we'll see.
Mm.
And yeah, who have you got next?
Bournemouth away on Saturday.
Interesting. Never a nice ground to play at, but
I know. I don't like watching it on the TV as well, right? Because the camera's so low.
no, it looks like
But
an FA Cup second round match, doesn't it? It's like
yeah. We've got two
yeah.
of those now. Luton at the same, don't they?
I know.
Yeah.
Tough games, tough games.
Um,
All right, we'll do a little review of that later on in the week at some point if we can.
some
Um,
Carabao action as well. We've got Brentford tomorrow too. So should see Aaron Ramsdale back, I think, for that one.
Ramsdale's in the Carabao now. Poor bloke.
I know.
Poor
Yeah,
bloke.
poor guy.
Yeah. Cool, mate. All right. That will wrap up for the review of the North London derby.